First, let me just say welcome. I appreciate everyone coming out tonight. My name is Julie Woodsley. I'm with the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, and tonight's event is co-hosted by my agency and also the Department of Health and Human Services. This is our 7th public information session, so we're happy to come back and share some up-to-date information with you. We're going to stick to the same format you may have seen before if you've come to any of the previous information sessions. So we're going to have speakers first, and then we'll have time for Q&A at the end. If you would like to ask a question during that time, we do ask that you sign up. And we have sign-up sheets at the tables up front where you came in. We usually limit the time of speakers to about 3 minutes, just to make sure that everyone has time to speak. And then if there's additional time at the end, we can accommodate additional speakers. So if you do want to make sure you have time, please do sign up. Some quick housekeeping things. Where you came in to the front, there are restrooms located, one on each side. And unlike in the event of a fire, we do ask that you follow the exit signs. You can come back out the way you came in, or you can go on the side exits here and here. All right. So our first speaker tonight is Dr. Zach Moore. He's with the Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Public Health, Epidemiology Section.
Okay, so I'm going to be pretty brief because a large reason why we come here is to hear from you, so I don't want to take up too much of your time. But there have been a couple of updates since our last information session from a health perspective that I want to talk to you about. So we can go on to the next slide. Basically, 3 things that I'm going to cover. One is the blood and urine testing that was done for some residents in Bladen County and Cumberland County. Talk about those results. We're give you a little heads up about a community survey that's coming your way in the new year. That's something that we've talked about before and heard from the community. Last anybody asking us about our health problems, etc. So I'll talk a little bit about what's coming your way so you can be aware when something shows up in your mailbox what that's about. And then lastly, some of you might be aware that the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, just put out a draft toxicology assessment for GenX and actually for another chemical I'm not going to talk about. So I'll just tell you briefly the big picture of what's in that report. Okay, so the blood and urine testing, what we're calling an exposure investigation, was designed to answer a couple questions. The first one is, can we find GenX and these other related chemicals in the bodies, in the blood and urine of people who have high levels of exposure? Probably have the highest levels of exposure based on their water testing. And then secondly, if we can find them, how do those levels compare to levels in other groups elsewhere in the country, elsewhere in the world? What can we say about it? Next slide. So this was work that we led from the Department of Health and Human Services, but we were only able to do it because of an offer from CDC. They actually did the testing on blood and urine samples. They were only able to do a pretty small sample, 30 people, but they were very helpful in that, and then ATSTR is another part of CDC. Also want to recognize that the Bladen and Cumberland County Health Departments did a lot of the work in this. They set up all the appointments, had people come in there, do all the testing, or draw the samples anyway, so they were a big piece of this, and then our colleagues at DEQ were helpful also in terms of giving us the well water results so that we could identify the people to be tested, or to invite, I should say, for testing. Okay, so we were only able to do 30 residents. That was the offer that we had from CDC. We did focus on people who had the highest levels of GenX specifically in their well water. So the testing that you're all aware of, the DEQ has been involved with, sort of going out concentric circles around the facility. We used those data and we identified sort of just ranked them from highest to lowest and started making phone calls and inviting people at the top of that list to participate. And we allowed 1 adult and 1 child, if there was one that wanted to participate, from each of those households to participate in this investigation. And that was because we didn't want to have everybody from just one house. We wanted to kind of spread it out a little bit. I just want to point out this was not a random sample. we are scientists. If we were going to do a study, we would do it very differently. This was not a study. This was an investigation to look at people who had the highest levels of exposure, as far as we could tell. Skip on to the next one. So CDC was able to test for 17 of these chemicals in the blood. I'm sure a lot of you are aware of the work that NC State's done down in Wilmington, Dr. Jane Hoppin and other colleagues, where they've tested for a whole bunch of other PFAS, a whole bunch of other ones of these chemicals. CDC is not able to test for all those because they use different methods than the NC State people are using the EPA. So these are the ones that they were able to look for. Don't need to read it, but GenX is obviously on the list. A lot of the ones like PFOA and PFOS, the sort of older ones that have been a little better studied, are on that list as well. So they looked for 17 in blood and 16 in urine. There's one of those that there's no urine test for. So as far as the results, this is just a little breakdown. You probably can't really read it from here. This is just who participated. It was half male, half female. As it worked out, it was mostly adults. We did have 17 children. Well, I guess it wasn't mostly adults. It was a mix of adults and children in the, sorry, those are percentages. Apologize for that. It was mostly adults, with 17% of the participants were kids. And most of the people had lived in the county for a pretty long time. I guess pretty much everyone had lived in the county at least 10 years who participated in this, and a lot of them had lived here more than 40 years. We did some questions just to try to figure out other potential sources of exposure for the people who were involved in this investigation. 100% of people were using bottled water, and the time for different amounts of time. That's all up on our website. You can see the full report. But everyone had switched to bottled water at the time of this study, and in most cases they'd already been on bottled water for months before they participated. We did have about a quarter of the people who consumed local fish, about a third that ate local eggs, poultry, meat, or wild game, and about 2/3 that reported having that they eat local fruits and vegetables. This was just a way for us to figure out other potential sources of exposure. We'll go on to the next slide. So, getting to the actual findings for the blood, and I apologize to you for bearing with me on this. So we did find, of the 17 that we looked for, 9 of them were present in blood samples of the participants. So GenX was not detected. 7 others were also not detected. So of those 9, there were 4 of them that were found in all participants. So 100% of the people who participated had these particular PFAS found in their blood. And that's just a list of those. PFOA and PFOS were in that list. Of those, 2 of them, we didn't have comparisons for all these 17, but for some of them we did have national data, so we could see, are people in this investigation higher or lower with their levels than the average person in the US? And for 2 of them, and that's PFOS basically, and PFHXS is another one, the levels that we found here in the participants were higher than the average levels in the US. And I'll show you a little graph of that in a second. So 4 of them were in everybody. We did have another 5 that were not in everybody, but were detected in at least 1 person. And there's a list of those there. Again, this is all posted up on our website. Okay. So this is the 2. This graph just shows levels in the blood, the median or middle level of the blood. The yellow or gold, I guess, is North Carolina participants in this investigation. And you can see for PFOS over there on the left and PFHXS on the right, those gold bars are higher, meaning that the concentrations in blood were higher compared to the national sample that we had, which was from 2013-14. That's the dark blue line there. Good. I think this is probably going to be too hard to read from there. Again, you can look at all this stuff, and we have copies here, at least I do. But basically, those gray dots that you can see, for those 2 that were higher than the national average, you can see those gray dots. Each of those is 1 participant. So it was really spread out in terms of some people didn't have much at all. Some people had, well above that mean value. Go on. And then these are the other four that we could compare that were where the medians in the sample here were actually the same or lower than the national average numbers. Okay. Okay, and so for urine, there was only one of the PFAS that was detected in the urine sample, so the 16 that we looked for, that's one called PFHXA. It was only found in one participant, and it was at a level that was very close to the lower limit of detection, and no other PFAS were found in urine. So a couple things to consider with these limitations for this type of investigation to point out. First of all, we couldn't test for all PFAS. This was what CDC is currently able to test for. Again, if you look at the Wilmington sample, it's different. They have ability through the EPA to do testing for a little bit broader range. So this is just the ones that we could look for using the CDC lab. Next bullet. These PFAS levels are only represented of the time when they were collected. So, you know, this, again, people have been on drinking water, on bottled water for a while. We have no way of sort of back calculating what would somebody's level have been before they switched to bottled water at some other point in time. Third one, and it's a really big one, is we can't speak to the health effects based on these levels in the blood. There aren't any established sort of health-based levels. And those of you who've been to these meetings before have heard some variation on this. If you get your cholesterol tested, it'll come back, it'll say that's high, that's higher than it should be, or that's low. We don't have anything like that for PFAS, for these chemicals. We don't have any levels that have been established to know what's high, what's low. All we can do is compare them to other people sort of elsewhere in the country and say, well, it's higher than the average person in the US. It's important to know that you can't compare these to the drinking water levels. I think the number 140 is kind of fixed in a lot of people's heads because that's the provisional drinking water health goal, but that is a concentration in drinking water. It's calculated based on how much water people drink during their lifetime. It's got nothing to do with these blood levels, so you can't really say a blood level is above 140 or below 140, so it's high or low. That's really apples and oranges. And then lastly, this was not a representative sample. Again, if we were, as scientists, trying to really do a study, we would have, picked random houses in the population and said, this is what we think this whole community level average is. That's not what this was. This was intended to see, can we find them in the most highly exposed people. So these are the people whose wells, private drinking water wells, had the highest levels. So this is not a random sample. We can't say that everybody in this area that this would represent what you would find if you tested your blood or urine. Okay, but we were able to make some conclusions. So first of all, we did find that these PFAS are detectable. This wasn't a surprise. We know from national data all of us have PFAS detected at some levels in our blood, but we were able to find 9 out of these 17 that were tested for. So most of the ones that we tested for were either not found, like GenX, or they were found at levels that were similar to the US population. So this could indicate that GenX doesn't stay in the body for very long, or doesn't stay in the body for many, many months or years. That's one possible explanation. Of course, all these tests have their limits. They only can detect down to a certain point, so it's possible that some of these chemicals were present in people's bodies and they were just at levels that we couldn't measure because of the CDC's tests. And then, importantly, 2 of the older PFAS were found at levels that were higher than we would have expected based on looking at the general US population. So that's obviously a concern. We do know that those stay in people's bodies for a very long time, and it's unclear if what we were measuring in these people had something to do with what they're being exposed to now, or if it's still lingering in their body from exposures in the past, or some combination of both. So as far as next steps on that, we've already shared those. Of course, those results were all shared back with the individual participants, and they all had conversations about the meaning of these. We did a press release. We included the general information. Of course, we're never going to share any individuals' levels because that's confidential. Some people have chosen to share their own, which is fine. We did post Last month we posted our summary reports. I would encourage you, if you have questions about this, we can talk about them tonight, or you can look at that report. It's got a lot more information than I went through. And then lastly, this kind of informed our plans with the community survey, which is the next topic I want to talk about. Okay. So, again, we have been talking about and planning this community survey for a while. I just want to prep you all because we would really appreciate your participation when this gets off the ground at the beginning of next year. The goal is to better understand and be able to respond to the particular concerns of the community. It's great to have these information sessions and hear from you, but there's a lot of people who probably don't come out, and we want to be able to hear from everybody. So the idea is to gather some information. I'll talk about what, and use it to understand how people in the community have been affected. It can help us guide our responses, make sure that we're addressing the things that people are actually worried about, and to tailor our health education and our messages so that we're not talking about something that's not of interest while people are really worried about this other thing. Next slide, please. So the questions that are going to be included are going to talk about your home, your drinking water, where you get your drinking water, what changes you've made as a result of all this, other activities that you do around your home and your community, and what other changes, how this has affected your lives in terms of a whole range of activities, including gardening, hunting, fishing, etc. We're going to ask questions about health, try to get at people's particular individual health concerns about these type of chemicals. We're going to talk about communications. Where are you getting your information? What's useful? Do these information sessions help you? Do you like the website? Do you know about the website? How would you like to get your information? And then we're going to gather a little information that we don't have now about just the general community, the age of people living here, how long they've been living in the homes, etc. Next slide, please. So the letters are supposed to be mailed out. I'm looking at our staff back there to see if they nod. January. They nodded. Okay. They're going to be mailed to everybody who lives within 10 miles of the Fayetteville Works site. There will be a press release when this happens, so you'll probably be hearing about it in a local paper, etc. We're going to give people about 3 weeks to complete it, and probably try to do some reminders, etc. You can either fill out a paper copy and mail it back in, or if you prefer, there's going to be a link in there, or I guess it won't be a link if it's on the actual envelope. The address you can type into the computer and answer the questions online. Okay. All right, so the last topic, I'm sorry I said I was going to be brief, and I feel like I'm talking forever. The EPA draft GenX toxicity assessment. So this is a draft that EPA put together. They just released it a couple of weeks ago, I want to say. And first of all, I want to acknowledge this is not the end-all, be-all for us understanding the health effects of these chemicals. I think it is an important step forward, and I'll talk about why, but there's still way, way more questions than answers. And this does not in any way help us address questions like, what are the health effects of, can you add all the numbers up for all the different chemicals, and does that tell you anything about your health effects, or how do you do that? So other really important questions that are very much unanswered. But this does give us some good information, and it's a pretty big step forward, I think. So they released it for public comment. Some of you may have already read it, may have already commented. You have through January 22nd if you feel like doing so. But the big thing is that they calculated what's called a chronic reference dose. And I thought I would tell you what that is, because it's not something you might just sort of guess. That's an estimate of the dose of a substance with uncertainty spanning perhaps an order of magnitude. It means that the true value could be tenfold higher or tenfold lower than their estimate, to which a human population, including sensitive subgroups, can be exposed that is likely to be without an appreciable risk of harmful effects during a lifetime. So that's what a reference dose is. And the reference dose they came up with was 0.00008 milligrams per kilogram per day. So I just want to point out that that's actually very similar to the reference dose that we used in DHHS way back when we were calculating our provisional drinking water health goal. Ours is 0.0001, so those are very similar numbers. You can't compare this. I think some people, again, that 140 is kind of prominently in some people's minds. And it's not, you can't compare 140 to 0.00008. The 140 is if you take that reference dose, you do some calculations about how much water people drink, et cetera, you get to that level. So the comparison is more between the reference dose we used and the reference dose that EPA put out. Next slide, please. So in terms of the health effects that they noted, they basically used the same animal studies, laboratory animal studies that we used when we were looking at this issue. And they found, obviously, looking at the same studies, the same health effects. Liver damage, it was the one that was seen at the lowest doses, so effect on liver cells, on animals' liver cells. Anemia, which is not having enough red blood cells. They saw, and these are all effects in the laboratory animals. Damage to the kidneys, decreased weight of their offspring, immune system problems, and there was some evidence of carcinogenic potential, which means cancer causing. There was one study where there was increased cancers found in animals with higher levels of exposure, but they weren't able to calculate, just as we weren't able to calculate a cancer-based reference dose, because there wasn't enough information on that particular outcome. Next slide. Okay, so just a little bit about the comparison between what they put out and the reference dose here. If we could just click through here. So basically, they're very similar. So I think there's some, of course, there's some building scientific consensus basically, because we did this back in June, July 2017. We've since had our science advisory board of external folks from universities, from industry, et cetera, look at the work that we did there and basically agree that that those conclusions were correct. And now we have EPA coming out with a very, very similar number. So there is some building scientific consensus, which is, again, a big step forward from where we were a year and a half ago. But we do agree that there are health effects from GenX specifically, and we do agree about what the kind of health effects would be and the magnitude of those health effects. So that is some good news. They used the same studies that we used, and they used the same main endpoint, which was damage to liver cells, to calculate their reference dose. There were some differences. The reason the numbers aren't exactly the same. Some of the ways that the calculations were done based on how you get from an animal number to a number for humans were slightly different, but overall very similar. Next. Okay, so our next steps, I really want to point out that this is a draft. It's out for public comment. It may end up changing based on when they get all those public comments and review them, so we're not taking any action based on this EPA reference dose. We're not changing our provisional health goal for drinking water, and we did go to our science advisory board, share this information, and they were in agreement that there's not any justification or reason for making a change right now, and this is all the draft. But we will be looking to see if EPA comes out with a formal official reference dose, that we may make changes based on that. Okay. And I think I'm done. I'm sorry I took up more time than I intended to.
One particular area of focus is the resampling of wells that have already been tested, specifically wells that are between 100 part per trillion GenX and 139 part per trillion. Those wells are being retested to ensure that anyone that's above the provisional health goal of 140 parts per trillion is supplied an alternate water source like bottled water. So that's the current data that we're getting in as the division. I'll start some of my slides so we don't delay. But the current areas of focus, as a lot of you know, private well sampling is out to about 5.5 miles to the northeast of the plant at this time. If you live towards the western part or western direction from the Fayetteville Works facility, sampling is occurring out to 3 miles in that direction, 5 miles to the southwest, and 3.5 miles to the east. So as we've shared before, there's a pretty broad radius of private well sampling that is occurring around the Fayetteville Works facility. You've also seen on some of our other illustrations, and we brought one tonight, a lot of the focus is on that northeast to southwestern direction. As our colleagues in air quality have described to us, that's where some of the prevailing winds have been over the course of time, and where we've seen a lot of the concentrated effects of GenX that have impacted private wells. We're up? All right, please catching up to me. So a lot of you have seen this slide before. The red area or polygon showed those wells that have been sampled, private drinking water wells that are above that 140 part per trillion provisional health goal that Dr. Moore described. The yellow polygons show you those areas where GenX was detected in a private well, but not above that 140 part per trillion, meaning bottled water has not been provided to those particular well owners. And then the green polygons are obviously the areas where private wells were tested, but GenX is not present in the well. Next slide, please. So we always like to touch on a few brief stats. We've talked about that the radius is out to 5.5 miles. We have over 800 private wells, meaning homeowner wells that have been tested for this particular compound GenX. We have 172 wells that have exceeded that 140 part per trillion provisional health goal, meaning that it's recommended that those individuals seek another source of drinking water. And Chemours has provided bottled water to them. And we'll talk about some future options also this evening beyond bottled water. This data does reflect some sampling that the Robeson County Health Department took on. We did collaborate with them and Director Bill Smith and his staff to sample a few wells in Robeson County. We did have one exceedance of the provisional health goal in that county also. Next slide, please. One area of focus tonight, we wanted to talk about these whole house filtration systems. So as I mentioned to you, if you have a private well that's unfortunately above that 140 part per trillion level, the first and quickest option, as we always respond as the state, is to provide bottled water, something that can be brought out very quickly, put on the front porch, giving people the option of another source of water. The next step is to look for a more permanent solution. Obviously, there's a lot of discussion on water lines, where water lines are in the community, how soon they can be installed, what's the distance to homes from the closest water line, etc. One thing we've done is looked at these whole house filtration systems that Chemours approached the department with months back to determine their effectiveness. They are not systems that are new to the state, meaning granular activated carbon. What is new are the type of compounds we're dealing with at the Fayetteville Works plant and determining whether these types of filters are effective or not. So we call them GAC, or granular activated carbon. A lot of you may have a refrigerator with an ice maker or a water dispenser. You have a cartridge that you need to replace at some interval in that refrigerator. This is a bigger scale type treatment system that treats the water for an entire house. So we embarked upon a study working with Chemours to supply these filtration systems to 6 residences. Now it's 5, but 5 individual residences where we can determine whether they're effective at removing these chemicals, what maintenance and monitoring is required, that feedback here, and also to determine what ranges of GenX in the wells we're dealing with. The average GenX concentration in untreated water was ranging from 178 parts per trillion to over 1,700 parts per trillion. And the yellow dots around the green polygon in this slide is the Fayetteville Works plant. They show you the approximate locations of these whole house filtration systems that we've been testing. The upper picture shows you one of these filtration systems that has 2 large blue canisters. Those canisters are filled with activated carbon. There's also an iron filter and a sediment filter that goes along with these types of whole house filters. The other piece of information we needed was to determine what water flow these private wells have. The current flow rates are between 570 to 2,400 gallons per week that these particular homeowners are utilizing. That impacts how well these systems function, the maintenance of them, and that was critical information in our evaluation. And we heard from you guys, the community. We needed to be looking beyond just GenX. What are the other PFAS that are potentially in groundwater that we need to see if these systems are effective? What we want to draw your attention to is the 3 yellow rectangle blocks, the raw, the mid, and the post. Those are where we've taken samples to look at the effectiveness of these systems. Water coming out of the ground, the raw polygon, the midpoint between those 2 blue canisters, how effective is the first carbon canister, and then post, what's actually going into the home as far as level of the fluoridated compounds. In our list of 33 compounds, 15 were not detected, a total of 17 were, with 7 of them being at 50 part per trillion or higher at one or more sites. And I won't belabor you with all the names of these particular compounds, but you'll see GenX, PFMOAA, some of the other compounds we've naturally seen from the on-site well water data from the Fayetteville Works plant. Our evaluation is really focused on the midpoint, that yellow rectangle in the middle. We want to collect data there, knowing when a compound starts making its way through this first filter media and long before it even makes it into the house, to determine when these systems, number one, are they effective, number two, when would they need to be serviced, when would one of these filters need to be swapped out. One key point is that we've not seen in that right-hand rectangle, the post rectangle, any finished water samples where PFAS was detected or fluorinated compounds above the 10 part per trillion. So we're still collecting data, we're still evaluating these systems, but we wanted to share with you some of these results tonight. That's right. One thing we look at is that middle, that midpoint sample to see if there's any compounds making their way through that first blue canister before it makes its way to the second canister. We have seen at this location 75, that's basically a home. We don't put people's addresses up for a specific reason. But at location 75, we are seeing the PFMO-PRA compound has made its way through that first canister and is starting to increase its concentration before going into the second canister. What that tells us is after 5 months, almost 6 months of data collection, we're starting to see some of these smaller or shorter chain compounds can make their way through the first canister. That's a critical piece of information regarding maintenance of these systems. If a homeowner elects to choose one of them, when would it need to be serviced? When do we ensure that compounds aren't going to make their way into a residence? Julie? So based on this data, the filters, that granular activated carbon filter system that we showed you a picture of, appear to be removing not only GenX, but those other PFAS compounds that we shared some of the names with you tonight. System maintenance is critical, like changing oil in your car, changing the filter in your refrigerator. When would they need to be serviced? So we're starting to see that breakthrough after that first filter, and that filter replacement or switch out may need to occur at some of the sites we're testing. The state, Department of Environmental Quality, we're going to continue to test these sites that we have and make sure that we understand their effectiveness and when maintenance needs to occur. And we're also looking at concerns that have been presented by some of you here tonight. We have heard problems with low water pressure. Chemours has assured us they'll install booster pumps on wells to ensure there's not a pressure difference inside of homes, but we've heard concerns from citizens about that. We've also heard concerns about freezing temperatures, like some of the weather we've experienced recently, and if this piping is inside of a shed, how are we going to ensure that the pipes don't freeze up and cause you a loss of water during the wintertime temperatures? Julie? So another area that you guys have helped us with, you've shared data with us. So we had some data shared with us at DEQ about some testing of water within a home after one of these GAC filters. So we appreciate that collaborative effort. That's what we need when it comes to emerging compounds. We need to share data openly, and that's one of the intent of tonight's meeting. Once the citizens shared with us that there was some data collected from an individual's kitchen sink after one of these filters, and their data still showed GenX in the water, we wanted to go out, and we did so, to collect our own samples, to try to figure out what's going on. At one location, out of the systems we tested 5 systems. One of them, unfortunately, still had GenX at the kitchen sink after one of these filters. So now we're working on to evaluate possible sources. Could it be the water softener that the home uses? Could it be the hot water heater? But the point here being that activated carbon system is doing its job. No PFAS were detected, yet we're still finding GenX at the kitchen sink. So where we are now is looking to flush that household plumbing, flush the hot water heater, evaluate the water softener to see if there are residual PFAS compounds inside of that household plumbing. This was critical information that was provided to DEQ that we then took and have followed up on to ensure that we're giving this homeowner a clean drinking water supply. Julie. So Chemours has offered to install these units. A lot of you may have received letters or have had outreach from Chemours regarding your well water if you're above that 140 part per trillion for GenX. As of November 29th, Chemours has talked to 51 residents who have interest in one of these systems being installed. 33 access agreements have been obtained. 10 units have been installed where the electrical work is still pending, and 2 units are completed as of now, and 22 are in process of being installed. We share this with you just for complete transparency. What is the community looking at? What is the community evaluating? We've heard from some of you who call us directly about questions. We just wanted to share with you some status figures. Julie? Another area we've had a lot of questions on as your community has persevered through Hurricane Florence, as well as a lot of the other parts of the state. You know, what impacts did 20 inches, 25 inches of rainfall have, not only on the community, but also on the Fayetteville Works plant and the level of these perfluorinated compounds at it. So Chemours, we don't have the data yet. We should have it any day now. Has sampled 3 particular creeks, Willis Creek, Georgia Branch, the old outfall channel. They're also have sampled ponding floodwater near the Cape Fear River, the outfall 002, and have sampled the river upstream and downstream around the Fayetteville Works facility, and also some local ponds in the area. For groundwater, they have sampled 14 on-site wells, and 5 of those are adjacent to the river, 9 are in the perched zone of the aquifer, and they've also sampled 20 residential drinking water wells, and are looking not only for GenX, but that longer list of perfluorinated compounds. So we'll share this data as soon as we get it. Some of you have called us wondering the impacts of Hurricane Florence to the facility, and this data set should be a good starting point to really characterize that. Julie? Spill when it was transporting liquid wastewater from the Chemours facility happened in mid-September. We received emails from you. Chemours notified us. We did go out, what we wanted to update you on this evening. We went out in collaboration with EPA. We've not sampled a lot of soil for GenX, so we had to ensure that the laboratory method was correct. But we did go out and collect roadside samples and a background soil sample around this truck spill area. So we appreciate the emails, the phone calls we have gotten. We felt like we did respond as quickly as we could with EPA to collect those samples, and we have analyzed them and are getting ready to share the data and also determine our final regulatory steps. So I know this is something a lot of you have inquired about, and we have followed up on it, collected data, and are now ready to make our final regulatory decisions related to this truck spill. It's an unlined channel that was lined to prevent infiltration of particular water into the underlying aquifer. The sediment basins that are used by the Fayetteville Works facility were also, the south basin was completed, its lining in October, and the north basin should be completed by the end of the year. These 2 initiatives help to keep additional volumes of water out of the underlying aquifer, which does have perfluorinated compounds in it. That then helps to prevent those particular compounds from impacting wells, receptors adjacent to the facility, and even the Cape Fear River. There's also ongoing dewatering of the perch zone. This is the highest groundwater levels of perfluorinated compounds. That water is being pumped out and removed and transported off-site. And right now, about over 40,000 gallons has been removed since the end of November. One follow-up we have done as DEQ, we heard from you early on at one of these community meetings, more work needed to be done to characterize other impacts potentially to what you hunt, what you fish for around this particular plant. So we conducted fish sampling on Marshwood Lake just above the Chemours facility in the spring. 2 data points is always better than 1, so we went back to that particular privately owned pond and collected more fish tissue, surface water samples, sediment samples, to characterize the presence of these compounds in fish tissue specifically. And you'll see there, we were able to harvest a largemouth bass red ear sunfish, and blue catfish. We'll be looking not only at GenX, but that broader panel of perfluorinated compounds, and we'll share that data fairly soon once it is finalized. So we have this initial data, but we always feel like more data is better than less, so we did go out and collect those samples. Julie? And that's it for me. I believe I'm transitioning to Linda Culpepper with the Division of Water Resources.
Just thank you for joining us. I know this time of year you had a lot of other choices on how to spend your night, and we're just very thankful that you decided to spend time with us so that we can learn from you and we can share an update and hopefully help fill in some data gaps for you. So thank you for joining us. Next slide. Just to show you when we've been doing some talks nationally and within our EPA Region 4 states here in the Southeast. I want to make sure you know we're talking about the work you're doing as citizens, as NGOs, as local governments, local representatives. We're including you on this. This is all hands, all in. It takes everyone. We each have a role to play in this effort, and we just want to make sure that you realize that we recognize that each of us has a part in this, and it takes all of us working together. So, again, thank you. On EPA's behalf, I listed them as well. I know Dr. Moore has shared with you that EPA has come out with some health information about 2 of the chemicals. I also want to let you know they're continuing to do work on test methods. I think you heard Michael say the same thing. We're still trying to get that edge so that we can compare results if we have the same certified test methods being used. So that's vitally important for us. Next slide, Jill. Thank you. Apologize. Wanted to share with you, EPA has come out with an update to EPA's drinking water test method, the 537.1 method, and this lists all those different chemicals. There's 18 of them now that are included in this test method. So if you go to a certified lab, this is what you would expect to get results back from now that they're using the method 537.1. It's probably going to be the test method if EPA comes out with another round of unregulated contaminant monitoring, where they monitor public water supplies. They would probably use this test method to look at these additional chemicals for those facilities, and to, if they're going to develop a maximum contaminant level, which is that standard for the drinking water facilities, they probably would use this test method that's been updated. Next slide. Again, we're continuing to monitor the composite samples at the Comores wastewater facility twice a week, so we're getting a 24/7 representation in those different sampling events. Again, though, EPA has not come out with a certified test method for wastewater, but we are getting analysis and we're comparing it on a trends basis. At the drinking water facilities, you can see those listed. We're monitoring our Athens, Georgia lab at EPA is doing our analysis for us and continuing that effort. They're looking at 23 chemicals in their analysis. Next slide will show you, again, the trend data we're seeing. This is going back from the Comores wastewater outfall from September of 2017 until the present. And you can see that trend downward since the facility has contained their manufacturing wastewater and they've been shipping it off-site for disposal. I want to note the scale on this one. It goes up to 3,000 parts per trillion, because I'm going to show you another slide. It's going to have a little different scale. Looking at the other chemical that EPA came out with, the health information, in addition to GenX, and Dr. Moore had indicated is that draft chronic reference dose. In addition to GenX, they came out with a level for PFBS, and that is one of the chemicals that has been analyzed by our Athens, Georgia lab. And looking at the trend for the Comores outfall, the average over the test period has been less than 5 parts per trillion for that chemical. Next slide. And here we go, whoops. And this is, yeah, thank you. And on this example for Northwest Brunswick is a drinking water facility. Again, I want to let you know the scale on this one is up to 900 ppt on the scale. And you can see there's the blip there in October that was associated with a release at the Commerce facility on or about October 6th is our best idea of why we see that blip. I wanted to let you know that PFBS, that other chemical, the average for the Northwest Brunswick facility has been averaging right around 3 ppt, so it's a lot lower than the GenX values. All of our data, we put this up, our link there, all of our data is on the web. It's in a format where you can get it as a PDF or you can get it as an Excel spreadsheet. So I know there's a lot of data geeks out there. You can work with it. The universities, I know, are working with it. You can sort the data. These values I've showed you today, it takes out anything that was below a reporting level. So this is working with the data set where we've actually had data that's qualified above the reporting levels for EPA. And speaking of that, we have our own mass spec that we're going to have delivered to our laboratory in Raleigh mid-January. We're in the process of hiring 2 chemists to help operate the equipment so we can do our own analysis, we can get lower detection levels, and our lab supervisor, he's getting ready to spend time over at the EPA on a detail at the EPA Office of Research and Development Lab that's come up with this research, Mark Strainar's lab. So he's going to be working side by side with these other researchers so that we understand the test methods and can deploy that in our own laboratories and get lower detection rates. Next slide, please. Just a list of our points of contact. To let you know, each of us have been talking nationally, working with other states. They're learning from us, we're learning from them. This is an exchange. There's a lot of different PFAS topics of issues across this country and international. And just to let you know that we are in touch, we are trying to learn from each other. This is not a one thing here in North Carolina. Unfortunately, there's a lot nationally. And I just want to let you know that we're trying to share knowledge, and we appreciate, I think, from the NGO standpoint and from a citizen standpoint, you're probably doing the same. We appreciate that. We are a learning community working together. Heidi Cox is with us tonight. She's the supervisor in the public water supply area for the Wilmington and Fayetteville areas. She and I are both going to be out at the water resource table after the session, so please come up and join us. If you have a specific question, we'll be glad to talk with you.
What I would like to do is hit some highlights in the proposed consent order that is out there. But before I do, I just want to take 1 minute to say thank you to the various Department of Environmental Quality staff who have been working on this issue since June of 2017. They have been diligent, committed, and with the goal in mind to try and provide information and so that we can try and make good decisions, but also do our level best to protect the environment and the public health of the community. So just want to say thank you to all the great work that's been done through the many months. That work helped design and shape the consent agreement that's out for public comment right now. Want to hit just on some highlights of the different sections of the consent order. And I'll start first with, first and foremost, preventing PFAS from the facility from entering the environment. And there's several areas of the consent order that touches on this. First, reducing the air emissions by 92% in 2018. That's paragraph 7 of the consent order. And by 99% in 2019, paragraph 8 of the consent order. The order itself picks up DEQ's suspension of the processed wastewater discharge, and that so that will be judicially enforceable. That's paragraph 10. Reduces PFAS in groundwater from entering the surface water, from entering the Cape Fear River, for example. That's paragraphs 12 and 16. And it reduces PFAS contributions from stormwater and non-processed wastewater, and that's paragraph 12. The second key area is remedial actions to clean up contamination, and that includes groundwater corrective action plan, paragraph 16, with additional requirements in paragraph 12. And then Michael Scott talked about the lining of the ditches and other groundwater remediation actions that are already underway at the plant, and that's to stop infiltration and loading to the river via the groundwater. Third area is alternate water, and that's providing whole house systems where GenX is greater than 140 parts per trillion, paragraph 19. Providing RO systems where the combined PFAS is greater than 70 parts per trillion, or any individual PFAS is greater than 10. That's paragraph 20. Next, we have closed out the alleged violations in the amended complaint and the NOVs. We did that via the civil penalty, paragraph 33, the release statement, paragraph 34, and the reservation of rights in paragraph 35. Despite all the great work that's been done at the site, I think there's still a lot of questions. So the next part that I'll touch on is filling information gaps, and that includes fully characterizing the PFAS in the processed wastewater, non-processed wastewater, and stormwater. That's contained in paragraph 11. Conducting health studies on PFAS compounds. That's paragraph 14. Assessment of on-site and off-site groundwater contamination, paragraph 18, and developing lab methods for measuring total organic fluorine, that's paragraph 26. Another key sector is providing public information. That includes notifying the downstream utilities of any upset conditions, public meetings on operational changes planned at the facility, and then a Chemours website for posting of everything that's submitted to the department. That's included in paragraph 30. And finally, the enforcement of the order included stipulated penalties and the contempt power of the court, which is paragraph 35. I think that we worked to try and get a comprehensive solution that addresses the environmental issues, but also obviously addresses the impact on the community and the impact on the residents. What I would invite you to do tonight, we brought some forms where if you have comments you want to provide tonight, you're welcome to fill these out. We'll take them back and include that as part of the record. There's also a website where you can send in comments. That is not websites, it's an email address, I apologize. comments.chemours@ncdenr.gov. And you can get to the link to that off of our website as well. We absolutely want to hear from you and hear what other ideas you have, what issues or concerns you may have with the proposed order. And so, to talk a little bit about what's next after the comment period closes, which it's scheduled to close on December 21st. When the comment period is complete, we'll be considering all of the feedback submitted and if the legal action directed by the order needs to change in any way. And after that, we would proceed with asking the judge to enter the final consent order in Bladen County Superior Court. I think after this, we have our comment period. So those were all my comments, but I do again appreciate your time tonight and your time I see so many familiar faces, the time that you spent with us over the various community sessions, and look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.